The morning sky over New Haven was painted in soft purples and oranges. Jiho Park stood at his office window, watching the farmers drive their vehicles toward the fields. He had been the colony commander for 12 years now, and every morning still felt like a gift. 300,000 people called this world home. They had built schools, hospitals, parks, and farms. Children played in the streets. Old people sat in gardens. It was peaceful. His communicator buzzed. It was Hyun-Woo Lee from the defense station in orbit. "Commander, we have multiple contacts. Large ships. They just appeared on our sensors." Jiho felt his stomach tighten. Identification. Vrethic Dominion warships. 15 of them. They're not responding to our hails. Jiho ran to the command center. The colony had a small defense force, just enough to handle pirates or accidents. Nothing that could face a Vrethic battle group. He opened all channels. "This is Commander Jiho Park of New Haven Colony. We are a civilian settlement. We pose no threat. Please respond." The screen flickered. A Vrethic commander appeared, his scaled face expressionless. "I am Threxus of the Vrethic Dominion. Your colony violates our territorial claims. You have been ordered to evacuate many times. You refused." "We never received any evacuation orders," Jiho said quickly. "This world was designated as unclaimed space by the Galactic Council. We have all the legal documents. Let me send them to you." Threxus showed his teeth. It might have been a smile. "Your documents mean nothing. You have 1 hour to surrender." The connection cut off. Jiho stared at the blank screen. 1 hour. He had 300,000 people spread across a continent. There was no way to evacuate them in 1 hour. There was no way to evacuate them in 1 month. They had cargo ships, transports, but nothing designed for mass evacuation. He opened the colony-wide channel. His hands shook. "This is Commander Park. We have a situation. Vrethic warships are in orbit. They have given us 1 hour. I need all transport pilots to report immediately. We will evacuate as many people as possible, starting with children and medical patients. Everyone else, please move to the underground shelters. Stay calm. We will get through this." But Jiho knew they would not get through this. He had seen what Vrethic warships could do. He had read the reports from other species who had faced them. The Vrethic did not bluff. They did not negotiate. Yoonji Kim was in the main hospital when the alarm started. She was a doctor, had been for 20 years. The hospital was her life. She had delivered babies here, saved lives here, trained young doctors here. Now she was trying to organize an evacuation. "Critical patients first," she shouted to her staff. "Anyone who can walk goes to the shelters. Anyone who cannot walk, we carry." A young nurse, Sumin Han, ran up to her. "Dr. Kim, there are not enough gurneys. We have 200 bedridden patients and only 50 gurneys." Yoonji felt tears in her eyes but pushed them away. "Then, we make trips. We move who we can and come back for the others. Go. Now." In the Eastern District, a teacher named Doyen Choi was trying to keep 30 children calm. They were crying. They did not understand what was happening. Doyen knelt down and looked at them. "We are going on an adventure," he said with a smile he did not feel. "We are going to the underground shelter. It is like a big cave. We will be safe there. But, we need to move quickly and stay together. Can you do that for me?" The children nodded. They trusted him. Doyen led them out of the school, holding the smallest ones by the hand. Other teachers joined him, forming a line of children moving toward the nearest shelter entrance. Above the planet, Hyun-Woo Lee watched the countdown timer. 40 minutes left. He had managed to get 3 transport ships loaded and away. 847 people. That was all. He looked at the pilot next to him, Miho Kong. Get them to Earth. Record everything. Make sure people know what happened here. Miho nodded. His transport, the last one to leave, was packed beyond capacity. Children sat on laps. People stood in the cargo bay. He initiated the jump sequence. Hold on, he told his passengers. We are going home. The ship lurched into faster-than-light travel just as the timer hit 0. Through the viewport, Miho saw the first weapons fire. Bright lances of energy stabbed down from the Vrethik ships. The colony shields lit up, glowing blue as they absorbed the impacts. For a moment, Miho hoped. Maybe the shields would hold. Maybe reinforcements would come. Then, the shields failed. The energy beams touched the ground. Buildings vaporized. The hospital where Yoonji Kim was still loading patients simply ceased to exist in a flash of white light. Yoonji and 200 patients and 50 staff members died instantly. Doyen Choi had just gotten his students into the shelter when the ground shook. The shelter entrance was collapsing. He pushed the children deeper inside and turned back. 3 students were still outside, frozen in fear. Doyen ran back, grabbed 2 of them, and threw them toward the shelter. The 3rd child, a little girl, tripped. Doyen covered her with his body as the ceiling came down. Jiho Park was in the command bunker, the deepest shelter in the colony. He watched the feeds from surface cameras. The city was burning. The farms were craters. The orbital defense station exploded as Vrethik fighters swarmed it. Hyun-Woo Lee's last transmission was a scream cut short. Yuna Song, the colony's elected leader, found Jiho in the bunker. She was bleeding from a head wound. Half the government building had collapsed. She limped to the communications station and opened a channel to Earth. This is New Haven Colony. They are killing us. All of us. We are not soldiers. We are farmers. We are teachers. We are doctors. We are your people. Remember us. And do not forgive them. Do not ever forgive them. The bombardment continued. Vrethik ships circled the planet like vultures. They fired on anything that moved, anything that powered up, anything that looked like it might be a shelter. For 3 days, the bombardment continued. Even when the sensors showed no life signs, the Vrethik kept firing. On the 4th day, they left. Behind them was a dead world. The cities were rubble. The fields were ash. The rivers boiled. 299,153 people were dead. In the deepest bunker, Jiho Park sat alone in the dark. The power had failed. The air was getting thin. He had food for maybe a week, but what was the point? Everyone was gone. Everything was gone. He activated his personal recorder, the emergency beacon that would broadcast for years if necessary. This is Commander Jiho Park. New Haven Colony is destroyed. The Vrethik Dominion did this. They gave us 1 hour. They did not care that we were civilians. They did not care about the children. They killed us because they could. If anyone finds this, if Earth survives, tell them what happened here. Tell them we died being civilized. Tell them we followed all the rules. Tell them the rules did not save us. He turned off the recorder and sat in the darkness, waiting to die. Far above, in the cold of space, Miho Kang's transport ship jumped into normal space near Earth's orbital station. He transmitted the recordings. Every second of the bombardment. Every scream. Every last message. Earth received them 3 hours after the attack began. The response from Earth took 3 more hours to formulate. It was not a message of peace. It was not a call for negotiation. It was a declaration that would change the galaxy forever. The transport ship carrying the survivors docked at Earth's main orbital station. Admiral Soo-hyun Ryu was waiting. She had commanded fleets for 30 years, had fought in border skirmishes and peacekeeping operations. She thought she had seen everything. She was wrong. The refugees stumbled off the ship. Many were injured. All were traumatized. A little boy named Jae-won Nam walked past, holding the hand of a stranger. His eyes were empty. Soo-hyun knew that look. She had seen it in war zones. The boy had watched his parents die. A pregnant woman named Hannah Shin collapsed on the dock. Medical teams rushed to help her. She kept saying the same words over and over. He went back in. He went back to help them. He did not come out. Soo-hyun watched the medics take Hannah away. Then, she went to the command center and watched the recordings. All of them. She watched the city burn. She watched the hospital vaporize. She watched a teacher cover a child with his body. When the recordings ended, Soo-hyun sat in silence for a long time. Then, she made a call. "Get me the Secretary of Defense." Youngji Park had been in meetings for 6 hours straight. Every department head, every military commander, every intelligence officer wanted to brief her. She ignored them all and went straight to the Galactic Council chamber. The council met in neutral space, a massive station that served as the galaxy's seat of government. She entered the chamber without announcement. The various species represented their turn to look at her. The Calthorian ambassador, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke first. "Secretary Park, this is a closed session. You cannot be here." Youngji walked to the center of the chamber. She activated the holographic projector. The recordings from New Haven began to play. The ambassadors watched. Some looked away. Some made noises of distress. The Vrethic delegate sat motionless. When the recordings ended, Youngji spoke. 300,000 human civilians are dead. You have condemned this action. What will you do? The Peltax ambassador, a creature covered in crystalline scales, cleared its throat. We will form a committee to investigate. Economic sanctions will be discussed. How long will that take? Youngji asked. These matters require proper procedure. Perhaps a year. Maybe 2. Youngji looked at each ambassador in turn. A year. While the Vrethic prepare their next target. While they celebrate their victory. While they prove that genocide has no consequences. The Vrethic delegate finally spoke. It was Threxus himself, the commander who had ordered the attack. The colony was illegal. Our actions were justified under Vrethic law. Youngji stared at him. You smiled when the bombs fell. It is in the recording. You smiled. Threxus showed his teeth again. Your species is weak. You play at civilization while we understand the truth. The strong survive. The weak die. This is the way of the universe. Youngji closed the holographic display. You asked what we would do. Now you know what you will do. Nothing. So now I will tell you what we will do. We are recalling every human ambassador. We are canceling every trade agreement. We are withdrawing from the Galactic Council. You had your chance to be civilized. You chose not to take it. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the ambassadors erupted in argument. She did not care. She had work to do. Back on Earth, a man named Tae-hyun-bae sat in a deep underground facility. He was the director of Humanity's Defense Initiative. For 200 years, his organization had prepared for this day. The day when Earth would need to defend itself without galactic help. The day when being civilized was not enough. He entered a code into his terminal. Across Earth, across the Moon, across Mars and the orbital stations, systems began to activate. Factories that built cargo ships retooled their assembly lines. Research stations that studied theoretical physics started deploying equipment. Shipyards that seemed to produce commercial vessels began constructing something else entirely. The Galactic Council had inspected these facilities many times. They had found nothing alarming. They had not known what to look for. Humans had shown them cargo haulers and told them the shipyards could build 50 per year. They had not mentioned that the same shipyards could build warships. They had shown them factories producing consumer goods and not mentioned the factories could switch to weapons production in 72 hours. For 200 years, humanity had been preparing. They had studied every species in the galaxy, their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. They had developed technologies the Galactic Council did not know existed. They had done this quietly, carefully, while smiling and trading and pretending to be just another peaceful species. Now the masks came off. Admiral Minsu Yun stood on the bridge of a ship that did not yet have a name. It was the first of a new class of warship, built in secret over the past 20 years. The ship was twice the size of the largest Rethic battleship and carried weapons that violated 17 different galactic warfare conventions. Those conventions were about to become irrelevant. Minsu looked at his crew, at the young men and women who had volunteered to serve. One of them was Sun Wu Jiang, a tactical officer barely 25 years old. Sun Wu had watched the New Haven recordings and enlisted the next day. "Sir," Sun Wu said quietly. "Are we really doing this?" Minsu looked at the view screen, at the stars beyond. "The Vrethic wanted to teach us our place in the galaxy. We are going to teach them theirs." Across the Sol system, ships were gathering. 200 warships, the entire First Fleet. Each one was crewed by volunteers. Each one carried enough firepower to crack a moon. They assembled near Luna, Earth's moon, in perfect formation. Not everyone supported what was happening. On Earth, protests erupted. A college student named Jinseo led demonstrations in Seoul. Thousands marched with her, carrying signs that read, "Peace, not revenge," and "We are better than this." Youngji Park could have sent police to break up the protests. She chose differently. She went herself, walking through the crowd to where Jinseo stood with a megaphone. "You want to talk?" Youngji asked. "Then, talk." Jinseo was surprised but recovered quickly. "This is not justice. This is revenge. We will become what we hate." Youngji nodded. "Maybe. But, I have a question for you. What would you have us do?" "The Galactic Council will do nothing. The Vrethic are preparing to attack another colony. They think we are weak. So tell me, what is the civilized response to genocide?" Jinseo did not have an answer. Youngji took out a tablet and showed her something. It was classified footage from New Haven, too horrific to release publicly. Children running from fire. A hospital full of patients burning alive. A teacher dying to protect his students. "That child looks like your sister," Youngji said softly. "That teacher could be your father." They were civilians. They were peaceful. They followed all the rules. And, they died. So tell me again about being civilized. Jinseo watched the footage, tears streaming down her face. Around them, the protest grew quieter as people saw what she was watching. When the footage ended, Jinseo looked at Youngji. "What if we become monsters?" "Then, we become monsters," Youngji said. "But, our children will be alive." The protest did not end, but it changed. Some people left. Others stayed but their signs changed. For New Haven, they read. Never again. At the lunar shipyards, the First Fleet prepared to depart. Min Su-yoon addressed his crews over the fleet-wide channel. We are not invaders. We are not conquerors. We are here because 300,000 civilians were murdered and the galaxy did nothing. The Vrethik believe strength is all that matters. We will show them what human strength looks like. But, remember, we fight for the innocent. We are not them. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. Their destination was the Vrethik outer colonies. The journey would take 3 days. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages, demanding Earth negotiate, demanding the fleet turn back. Earth's response was silence. On the 3rd day, the fleet arrived at the first Vrethik colony world. Minsu transmitted a message to the planet. This is the Earth First Fleet. You have 72 hours to evacuate this world. After that, anyone remaining will be considered hostile. We will not negotiate. We will not extend the deadline. Evacuate now. The Vrethik colonial governor thought it was a bluff. Humans were merchants and scientists. They built things and traded things. They did not wage war. The governor sent back a mocking reply. Your threats mean nothing. Leave now or face destruction. Minsu looked at the countdown timer. 72 hours. He hoped the civilians would evacuate. He hoped the Vrethik would take him seriously. But, he knew they would not. The Vrethik respected only strength, and they had not yet seen humanity's strength. In 3 days, they would. The 72 hours passed slowly. The Vrethik colony world of Carthex was home to 8 million Vrethik citizens. Most of them were civilians, families who had lived there for generations. The colonial government assured them the human threat was meaningless. They had seen human military exercises, peaceful maneuvers that looked more like cargo operations than warfare. A few Vrethik took the warning seriously. Families packed their belongings and boarded evacuation ships. Perhaps 10,000 left in total. The rest stayed, trusting their government, trusting their military, trusting that humans were too weak to follow through on their threats. Admiral Min Su-yoon watched the countdown timer reach 0. He felt sick. He had hoped more would evacuate. He had hoped the Vrethik government would see reason. But, hope did not change reality. He looked at his tactical officer, Sun Woo-jang. The young man's face was pale but determined. Begin the operation, Minsu said quietly. The human fleet did not orbit the planet. They did not deploy ground troops. They did not demand surrender. Instead, they deployed weapons the galaxy had never seen. Gravitational disruptors that bent spacetime itself. Relativistic kinetic kill vehicles that traveled at 99% of light speed. Quantum-entangled munitions that ignored shields entirely. The Vrethik defense platforms tried to respond. They fired their biggest weapons at the human ships. The shots passed through empty space. The human ships had never been where the Vrethik sensors said they were. Humanity had mastered quantum stealth technology years ago. They appeared on sensors in one location while actually being somewhere completely different. Wonho Lee commanded the dreadnought Righteous Fury, the largest ship in the fleet. He had been a merchant captain before the war, transporting goods between colonies. Now he commanded a ship designed for one purpose, overwhelming destruction. He thought about Yoonji Kim, the doctor who died in New Haven's hospital. She had delivered his daughter 20 years ago. He remembered her smile, her kindness. Target the military installations, he ordered. Fire. The dreadnought's main weapon was a directed gravitational beam. It did not explode things. It crushed them. The beam touched the largest Vrethik military base and the base simply collapsed into itself, compressed to a fraction of its size in seconds. 10,000 Vrethik soldiers died instantly. Around the planet, other human ships targeted other installations. Orbital platforms, shipyards, defense grids. Within 6 hours, the Vrethic military presence on Carthex was completely destroyed. The human fleet did not touch civilian areas. They did not bomb cities or farms. But, they made it clear that the planet was defenseless. Then, they left. They did not occupy. They did not conquer. They simply destroyed the military capability and departed. The message was clear: this could happen to any Vrethic world at any time. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. Sarah, the ancient Calthorian who chaired the council, was thousands of years old and had seen many wars. She had never seen anything like this. They violated every warfare convention we have established. Gravitational weapons are banned. Relativistic weapons are banned. They ignored all the rules. Jaiwan Choi, Earth's new ambassador, stood before the council. She was younger than Youngji Park, only 40 years old, but she had studied galactic politics her entire life. She knew every species, every treaty, every loophole. You asked us to follow the rules. We did. Our colonists followed every law. They filed every permit. They hurt no one. And, they were slaughtered. So we have decided to follow different rules now. The rules of survival. The Pelthax ambassador raised its crystalline head. You have committed atrocities. We will impose economic sanctions. Jaiwan smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Try it. 40% of galactic medical supplies come from human factories. 60% of rare earth elements are mined by human companies. If you sanction us, millions of your people will die from lack of medicine. Your industries will collapse from lack of materials. So please, impose your sanctions. See what happens. The council realized their mistake. For 200 years, humanity had integrated itself into the galactic economy. They had become essential. No one had noticed because humans were polite and reliable and their prices were fair. Now that economic power became political power. On the Calthorian homeworld, a human economist named Borum Seo was called into her supervisor's office. She had worked for the Calthorian Trade Ministry for 15 years. Her supervisor, a Calthorian named Thel, looked distressed. Is it true? Thel asked. About the trade contracts. Borum nodded. Every contract Earth signed includes a clause. If human civilians are subjected to hostile action, the contracts become void. And the penalties for breaking them are severe. How severe? Our economists estimate it would cost the galaxy about 4 trillion credits. Most governments would collapse. Earth has been planning this for a very long time. Thel made a sound like water flowing over rocks. It meant sadness. We thought humans were just good merchants. We did not know you were this clever. The Vrethic Dominion was not ready to surrender. They mobilized their second fleet, 600 warships under the command of Vrothak, their greatest military commander. Vrothak had never lost a battle in 50 years of warfare. He studied the reports from Carthex and dismissed them. Humans had won with surprise and technology. Now that the Vrethic knew what to expect, they would adapt. The second fleet moved to intercept the human ships. Vrothak expected a traditional space battle, ship against ship, where numbers and experience would matter. He had 600 ships against the humans' 200. The advantage was clear. Admiral Min Su-yoon watched the Vrethic fleet approach. His tactical team had been analyzing Vrethic battle doctrine for months. They knew how Vrothak would fight, what formations he would use, what tactics he preferred. The Vrethic had not changed their basic strategy in 3,000 years. Why would they? It always worked. Deploy the gravity wells, Minsu ordered. The human ships released small devices that floated in space. They looked harmless, like small satellites. Then, they activated. Each device generated a gravitational anomaly, bending space in unpredictable ways. The Vrethik ships, traveling in tight formation, suddenly, found themselves being pulled in different directions. Ships collided. Formations broke apart. Chaos spread through the Vrethik fleet. While the Vrethik struggled with the gravity wells, human drone fighters launched. Thousands of them, small and, fast and, cheap. They did not try to fight the Vrethik ships. They just flew straight at them and, exploded. Each drone carried a fusion warhead. Each explosion took down shields or damaged engines or destroyed weapons. Vrothak tried to rally his fleet. He was a brilliant commander, had trained his entire life for moments like this. But, he was fighting an enemy that did not care about honor or tradition or showing courage. The humans fought like machines, cold and, efficient and, utterly ruthless. A human frigate fired a relativistic projectile at Vrothak's flagship. The projectile was a simple chunk of metal, but, it was moving at 99% of light speed. When it hit, the kinetic energy was equivalent to a small star. Vrothak's flagship and, everything within 1,000 kilometers simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris. Just gone. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, the Vrethik's second fleet had been completely destroyed. The human fleet had lost 12 ships. Minsu looked at the casualty reports. 3,000 human crew members dead. He felt each loss like a knife. But, the Vrethik had lost over 100,000. Back on Earth, the philosopher Kyung-Min Han published an essay that spread across the human networks. It was titled, "We Asked for Peace and Were Given War." In it, he wrote, "The galaxy taught us that civilization is weakness. That following rules gets you killed. That mercy is punished with genocide. So we will return what we were given. We will give them war. And, when it is over, perhaps they will understand why we preferred peace." The essay was controversial. The protests on Earth grew larger. Jinseo on Reddit and, felt torn. She believed in peace, in negotiation, in finding better ways. But, she also knew that sometimes there were no better ways. Sometimes you had to choose between principles and, survival. She visited the hospital where the New Haven survivors were being treated. She met Jae-won Nam, the little boy who had watched his parents die. He was drawing pictures with crayons, images of fire and, ships and, people running. Jinseo sat beside him. "What are you drawing?" she asked gently. Jae-won did not look up. "My mama and, papa. They are gone. I know. I am sorry. The bad people killed them. Are our people going to stop the bad people?" Jinseo did not know what to say. She looked at this child, this traumatized little boy, and, realized that all her principles meant nothing to him. He did not care about moral philosophy or the rules of war. He just wanted the bad people stopped. "Yes," she said finally. "Our people will stop them." Jae-won nodded and, went back to drawing. Jinseo left the hospital with tears in her eyes. That night, she wrote a new speech for her protests. It was about finding balance between justice and, revenge, about not losing humanity's soul while protecting humanity's children. It was more complicated than her previous speeches. The world was more complicated than she had thought. After the destruction of their second fleet, the Vrethik government finally understood they could not win. They requested a meeting in neutral space to discuss peace terms. The delegation was led by Threxus himself, the commander who had ordered the New Haven bombardment. He wore his full military uniform, medals covering his chest. Earth sent Admiral Soo-hyun Ryu to lead the negotiations. With her was Jiho Park, the commander of New Haven Colony. Jiho had been found alive 3 months after the attack, unconscious in a sealed bunker. Malnutrition and dehydration had nearly killed him, but human rescue teams kept searching and found him. Now he sat across from the man who had murdered his colony. Threxus began with traditional diplomatic language. The Vrethic Dominion regrets the unfortunate events at New Haven. We propose reparations of 10 billion credits and territorial concessions to prevent future misunderstandings. Soo-hyun leaned forward. You are the one who gave the order. I watched the recording. You gave them 1 hour to evacuate 300,000 people. You knew it was impossible. I followed lawful orders from my government, Threxus replied. I am a soldier. I do my duty. Jiho Park stood up. His hands shook with rage. I watched you on the view screen. You smiled. When the first bombs fell, you smiled. Threxus did not deny it. Your colony was illegal. You were warned. You chose to stay. We were never warned, Jiho said, his voice breaking. There were children. Babies. Hospitals. Schools. We were farmers and teachers and doctors. We were not soldiers. Weakness invites attack, Threxus said calmly. This is the way of the universe. The strong survive. Your people were weak. Soo-hyun closed her folder. We have one demand. You and every member of the Vrethic command structure responsible for New Haven will surrender to stand trial. On Earth. Under human law. Threxus showed his teeth. Impossible. Vrethic commanders are sacred under our law. We do not surrender to outsiders. Then, there is nothing more to discuss, Soo-hyun said. She and Jiho stood and walked out of the negotiation chamber. Within hours, the human fleet moved toward Vrethic Prime itself, the Vrethic homeworld. The Galactic Council sent frantic messages. Sarah, the Calthorian chair, contacted Earth directly. You cannot attack their homeworld. You will shatter the galactic order. There will be chaos. Jaewon Choi, Earth's ambassador, replied simply. Your order permitted genocide. We will build a better one. Vrethic Prime had never been attacked in the species' 10,000-year history. The planet was protected by orbital defense platforms that had defended it for millennia. Shields powered by the planet's core. Weapons that could crack moons. Every Vrethic believed their homeworld was invincible. Admiral Min Soo-yoon studied the defenses for weeks. His tactical teams ran simulations, looked for weaknesses, analyzed every possible approach. Then, one of his scientists, a woman named Yunseo Kwan, proposed something radical. They would not attack the defenses at all. They would bypass them. Humanity had been developing quantum displacement technology for decades. It created temporary wormholes in spacetime, allowing instantaneous travel across short distances. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and had never been tested in combat. But it would allow human forces to appear directly on Vrethic Prime's surface, inside the shield perimeter. Colonel Haeun Kim led the ground assault team. She was a veteran of peacekeeping operations, trained in diplomacy as well as combat. But there would be no diplomacy today. Her mission was simple: capture Threxus and the Vrethic War Council alive. The quantum displacement worked. One moment Haeun and her 500 Marines were on their transport ship. The next moment they were standing in the capital city of Vrethic Prime, 3 blocks from the War Council chambers. Alarms immediately began to sound. The Vrethic Palace Guard responded quickly. They were elite warriors, each one standing over 2 meters tall and covered in natural armor plating. They had trained their entire lives for combat. They outnumbered the humans 5 to 1. But the humans had combat enhancement systems, powered exoskeletons that increased strength and speed. They had weapons designed specifically to penetrate Vrethic armor. And, they had something the Vrethic guards did not have. They had watched New Haven burn and, they were absolutely determined not to fail. The battle through the palace was brutal. Heian lost half her team in the first 20 minutes. She watched good people die, friends she had served with for years. But, they pushed forward, room by room, corridor by corridor. Nothing would stop them. Threxus and the War Council were in a fortified chamber deep in the palace. They expected to be killed. It was what the Vrethic would do in their place. When Heian and her surviving marines broke through the doors, Threxus raised his head proudly, ready for a warrior's death. Heian placed him in restraints instead. You are not dying today. You are going to trial. You are going to face the families of the people you murdered. And, you are going to live with what you did. The extraction was harder than the insertion. Vrethic military forces surrounded the palace. But, human air support provided cover, and, the quantum displacement brought them back to the ships. Heian delivered her prisoners to Admiral Min Su-yoon personally. The Vrethic government demanded the prisoners return. They threatened war, though their fleet was destroyed and, their homeworld now vulnerable. They called it a violation of sovereignty, an act of terrorism. Earth's response was to position the First Fleet in permanent orbit around Vrethic Prime. The message was clear: try something and, see what happens. The trial was held on Earth, broadcast across the galaxy. Threxus and 47 Vrethic commanders stood before a human court. The Galactic Council protested the jurisdiction. Earth ignored them. This was not about galactic law. This was about justice for the dead. Hannah Shin was one of the first witnesses. She had given birth to her daughter, Ariam, on the refugee ship. Now she stood in the courtroom, holding her baby, and testified about watching her husband die. His name had been Seo-jun. He had been a teacher, like Doyen Choi. When the attack began, he had run back into a burning building to save neighbors who were trapped. He never came out. He was not a soldier, Hannah said, tears streaming down her face. He taught children. He grew flowers in our garden. He was gentle and kind. And, you murdered him. Threxus sat silent throughout the testimony. Under Vrethic law, the accused had the right to remain silent, and he exercised that right. He showed no emotion, no remorse, no acknowledgement of the suffering he had caused. For 3 weeks, survivors testified. They described their lives before the attack, their hopes and dreams, the people they had lost. They made the dead human, gave them names and stories and meaning. Then, Jiho Park took the stand. He did not describe the bombing. Everyone had seen the recordings. Instead, he talked about the colony they had built. He described the gardens they had planted, each one designed by volunteers. He talked about the school play the children had been rehearsing, a story they had written themselves about explorers and friendship. He described the festival they had planned for the next month, celebrating the colony's 20th anniversary. We were building something beautiful, Jiho said. We were showing that humans could live in peace with a new world, could create without destroying, could grow without taking. And, you ended that. You ended 300,000 dreams because you saw us as weak. When the testimony ended, the judges deliberated for 2 days. The verdict was unanimous. Threxus and all 47 commanders were found guilty of genocide, crimes against humanity, and violations of the laws of war. The sentence was life imprisonment without possibility of release. The Vrethic government immediately demanded their return. They called it a political show trial, a violation of Vrethic sovereignty. They threatened economic retaliation and diplomatic consequences. Admiral Min Su-yoon's response was simple. The fleet remained in orbit around Vrethic Prime. The weapons remained armed. The message was clear: try us. The Vrethic did not try. Their military was shattered, their economy was collapsing, and their homeworld was held hostage. They had no choice but to accept the new reality. But, across the galaxy, other species watched. Some saw justice. Others saw tyranny. The Peltax military commander, Doran, began restructuring his forces. If humans could do this to the Vrethik, the most powerful military species in the galaxy, then, no one was safe. The philosopher Kyung-Min Han published another essay. "We have won the war," he wrote. "But, at what cost? We have shown the galaxy that we can be as ruthless as any empire. We have proven that we will not tolerate attacks on our people. But, have we lost ourselves in the process? Have we become what we fought?" It was a question without an easy answer. Earth had achieved justice for New Haven. They had punished those responsible. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would defend itself without mercy. But, they had also revealed a capacity for violence that frightened even their allies. Jin Seo-on read the essay and thought about Jae-won Nam, the little boy who just wanted the bad people stopped. She thought about the 300,000 dead who would never get to vote on whether revenge was worth it. She thought about the future and wondered what kind of galaxy humanity had created. There were no simple answers. There rarely were. 2 years passed after the destruction of New Haven. The galaxy was different now. Human warships patrolled the major trade routes, not as conquerors but as enforcers of a new order. Species that once dismissed humanity now sought military alliances and trade agreements. Fear and respect had replaced condescension. The Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place, the Interstellar Congress formed with representatives from every major species. The rules were different now. There was no more endless debate, no more committees that took years to reach decisions that meant nothing. The new Congress had one absolute law: genocide would result in immediate military response, up to and including the complete destruction of the aggressor's military capability. Earth had written that law. Earth enforced it. Jae-won Choi was now the Secretary General of Interstellar Affairs, the highest diplomatic position in human government. She faced criticism from all sides. Species like the Peltax called humans tyrants who imposed their will through force. Humans like Jin Seo-on called it imperialism, said that Earth was becoming an empire. "We are not an empire," Jae-won said in an interview. "We are not conquering. We are not occupying. We are simply making it clear that mass murder will not be tolerated. If that makes us tyrants, then I accept the title." A proposal came from the survivors of New Haven. They wanted to rebuild the colony on the same world where the massacre had occurred. They wanted to call it New Haven too, to honor the dead by continuing their dream. Ji-ho Park volunteered to lead the new colony. Many thought he was crazy. Why would anyone want to return to a place of such horror? But Ji-ho understood something others did not. If we abandon that world, then the Vrethik win. They wanted to erase us, to prove that humans did not belong there. If we return and build again, we prove them wrong. We prove that we cannot be erased. Thousands volunteered to join New Haven too. Among them was Sun Woo-jang, the young tactical officer who had served in the First Fleet. He had fought in the battles, had killed Vrethik soldiers, had watched friends die. Now he wanted to build instead of destroy. He wanted to prove that the war had been about protecting life, not ending it. The new colony began construction under heavy guard. Human warships maintained permanent orbit. Defense systems far more advanced than the original colonies were installed. No one would ever catch New Haven unprepared again. But threats remained. A Vrethik terrorist group calling themselves the Remnant launched attacks on human colonies. They were small, disorganized, but determined. They believed that the imprisonment of Threxus and the War Council was a humiliation that demanded vengeance. General Haeun Kim, promoted after her successful capture mission, led the counter-terrorism operations. She was efficient, ruthless, and completely without mercy for terrorists. But she was also haunted. She saw the faces of the people she had killed, Vrethik soldiers who were just following orders, guards who were just protecting their leaders. She won every battle but felt like she was losing something important with each victory. On Earth, Taehyun Bae retired from his position as director of the Defense Initiative. He gave a final speech to the assembled military leadership. We built these weapons to protect ourselves. We activated them to avenge our dead. But now we must be careful. Power corrupts. The ability to destroy planets, to crush empires, to impose our will on the galaxy, this is dangerous. We must never forget why we built these weapons. They exist to defend, not to dominate. Not everyone in the government agreed. There were voices calling for expansion, for using humanity's military advantage to claim territory and resources. We are the strongest, they argued. Why should we not benefit from that strength? Jaewon Choi shut down those arguments immediately. Because that is exactly what the Vrethik thought. They were strong, so they took what they wanted. And we punished them for it. If we follow the same path, we become them. And, someday, someone stronger will arise to punish us. In a small apartment on Earth, something unexpected happened. Minji Nam was caring for her nephew Jaewon, the boy who had survived New Haven. One day, she found a Vrethik child hiding in an alley near her home. The child was starving, terrified, and alone. His name was Rethik, and he had been orphaned when human forces destroyed a Vrethik military base. His parents had been civilians working in the base's administrative section. Every regulation said Minji should report the child to authorities. Every instinct of revenge said she should walk away. Instead, she brought him home and fed him. Then, she started the adoption process. The media firestorm was immediate. How could a New Haven survivor adopt a Vrethik child? How could she care for a member of the species that murdered her family? Protesters gathered outside her home. Some called her a traitor. Others called her a saint. A reporter asked Jaewon how he felt about it. The boy, now 8 years old, looked at the camera with serious eyes. He did not kill my mama and papa. The bad people did. Rethik is just a kid like me. That simple statement changed the conversation. People began to think about the difference between justice and blind hatred. Rethik had not chosen his species any more than Jaewon had chosen to be human. Punishing children for their parents' crimes was exactly the kind of thing Earth had gone to war to prevent. Slowly, painfully, reconciliation began. It was not forgiveness. The dead could not be brought back, and their loss would never be acceptable. But it was acknowledgement that children should not pay for their parents' sins, that cycles of revenge could be broken. Admiral Min Soo-yoon retired and moved to New Haven too. He did not live in the new city. Instead, he went to the site of the original colony, now a vast empty plain. He began planting trees, one for each person who had died. 299,153 trees. It would take the rest of his life. He planted them by hand, digging each hole, placing each sapling, watering each one. People offered to help, to send robots or crews to speed the work. He refused. This is my burden, he said. I commanded the fleet that avenged them. Now I will remember them, every single one. Hannah Shin's daughter, Ariam, grew up hearing stories about the father she never met. Seo Jun had been gentle and kind, a teacher who loved his students. Ariam decided to become a doctor, inspired by Yoonji Kim, who died trying to save her patients. They built things, Ariam said. They saved people. I want to do the same. The galaxy found a new equilibrium. Humanity was not loved, but they were respected. Other species no longer dismissed them as weak merchants who played at civilization. They understood that humans could be peaceful or they could be terrifying, and the choice of which face to see belonged to those who dealt with them. The ancient Calthorian, Sarah, visited Earth for the first time. She was thousands of years old and had seen empires rise and fall. She met with Youngji Park, now Earth's Prime Minister, and they walked through the New Haven Memorial in Geneva. 299,153 lights burned there, one for each victim. Your response was disproportionate, Sarah said, her telepathic voice like music in Youngji's mind. You destroyed fleets and humiliated an empire for one colony. Youngji stopped walking and looked at the lights. What proportion would have been acceptable? Should we have counted their warships and only destroyed an equal number? Should we have killed exactly 300,000 Vrethik to balance the scales? The galaxy will never fully trust you again. The galaxy will never underestimate us again. I will accept that trade. Sarah's lights pulsed thoughtfully. You have created peace through strength. A peace based on fear. Can you maintain it? We will try, Youngji said. Because if we fail, if we become the monsters we fought, then New Haven died for nothing. Those 300,000 people believed in building, in growing, in peaceful expansion. We owe it to them to prove that their way can survive in a galaxy that respects only strength. The conversation ended there, but both leaders knew the real work was just beginning. Maintaining peace was harder than winning war. Teaching the galaxy that civilization was strength, not weakness, would take generations. New Haven too held its dedication ceremony on the second anniversary of the original colony's destruction. Jiho Park stood before a monument bearing every name from the massacre. The central inscription was Yuna Song's final words, "Remember us. And do not you dare forgive them." Below that, Jiho had added his own inscription, "We remembered. We avenged. Now we build. And we will never be defenseless again." The colony's first child born on the new world was a daughter named Seo Young Lee. Her parents were both survivors of the original New Haven. They looked at her and saw not the past but the future. A future where human colonies could exist without fear. A future where strength and civilization could coexist. That night, Jiho stood alone at the monument, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were watching humanity, wondering if this new power could be trusted, if Earth would use its strength wisely or become another empire grinding the weak beneath its boots. He did not have all the answers. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity had been given a choice between being victims and being victors. They had chosen to be victors. Now they had to prove they could be victors without becoming villains. The galaxy would remember New Haven. And it would never again mistake humanity's preference for peace as an inability to wage war. Humans had shown that they could be civilized when civilization was respected. And they had shown what happened when it was not. It was not a perfect solution. It was not even an ideal one. But it was the galaxy they had now, forged in fire and blood and 300,000 dead who would never see the stars again. All humanity could do was honor their memory by building something worth their sacrifice. The lights of New Haven too glowed in the darkness, a small beacon of hope on a world that had seen unspeakable horror. Children played in the streets. Gardens grew. Teachers taught. Doctors healed. And, above them all, human warships kept watch, eternal guardians ensuring that what happened before would never happen again. Civilization and strength. Peace and power. Justice and vengeance. These were the contradictions humanity would have to balance. The galaxy would watch to see if they could. And if they failed, if the weight of power corrupted them as it had corrupted so many before, then perhaps another species would rise to pull them down, just as humanity had pulled down Vrethik. But, that was a problem for future generations. For now, there was only the work of building, of healing, of trying to create something good from something terrible. And, that work, Jiho thought as he looked at the monument one last time before heading home, that work was enough.